Welcome to the DK805 Podcast with Kristi, Katrina, and my longtime friend, Keith. I'm so excited to have you on here today, Keith.
Hi, Keith.
We're
Oh, hello. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it. Excited.
Yeah,
you
we are
know what?
too.
I'm so excited to tackle some tough topics and how recovery looks for you. A little bit of, I guess, mine and Keith's story is we grew up in the same town. We grew up around the same people. We have
hmm
the same friends. We
hmm
have similar similar stories in that regard. Keith is and was this really cool, popular athlete in school. He was everything. Yes, you were. And he's always just been fun and full of life. And in high school, I was just kind of the,
hmm
but when Devin
Wait,
was
did
struggling
you say high
too,
school?
yeah,
Was it
high
high school?
school.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. The journey. Yeah, it's just those connections, and it's beautiful that you've stayed connected and that support and all that you've been through, Christy, knowing that you have had, just knowing way before me that you've had really support of knowing the knowing. hmm
Well, and when Devin was struggling, Keith was one of the people that I'd reach out to because a
That's
lot
what I
of
meant. Yeah.
a lot of my journey with Devin involved rehabs,
Right.
and it involved me learning how to walk beside my child because that's something I didn't know how to do. Because although Keith and I had similar upbringings, we had very different paths.
hmm
Meaning, and you might remember this story, Keith. I tell this story, and let's see if you remember this part of high school. When we were in high school, one of our classmates died in a DUI. In
hmm
and so for me, it scared me. So I became very scared of alcohol
hmm
and drugs, and I walked more like the scared path,
hmm
and I was just scared. So when Devin started
hmm
to struggle, Keith was one of the people I'd go to, and he helped me understand how to walk beside
Yeah.
my son. And I'm so grateful for that. So thank you for being there. Thank you, Keith.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're welcome.
And our stories are
And
Yeah.
completely different in that way, Christy. And we have shared this before is that no, I didn't have, there were people younger in our town that we lived in a small town. And there were people that were going through that phase, is the high school phase and the stages of life of those things. And we had young people die around us that you'd hear like, well, that person didn't get home that night, and there was the big paper story, and those are awful experiences. But in my walk, it didn't scare me from any part of my own experimenting and journey. It was all just part of um, my own journey, as I will really come into. We all will have our own experience, our own journey, and what is one for one will not be and for another. And so your experience with that, and then you also had your sister Christy and that experience, and then with Devin, it just so in on that. I'm just so grateful to know that you did have someone you could talk to openly about what was the next course. And so, Keith, for you, when did your journey start? Was it in high school?
yeah, and real quickly, I want to touch upon something with Christy's story. She reached out to me when she was struggling with Devin, and I'm glad to hear that I helped. But I made a mistake that I was just telling a friend last night about that I didn't follow up on it. He said,
Yeah,
so that was, I don't want to sound like the hero here. I learned from that. I don't, I
I
take a
hear what
lot
you're
of,
saying. Yeah,
I
you
take a
weren't in
lot of
a
it really,
place.
I take it a lot now when I see people struggling. I have to follow up. There's a guy I just edited his book, and he met with his brother who's really just lazy, and he needed to get on disability. And I emailed him a whole bunch of really good information, and now I forgot about it. And it's from learning from Christy. I hit him up this week, and I go, "Hey, how's your bro doing?" And he just said he probably didn't apply to all this lynch you gave me. He's just
That
lazy.
mentorship, then that following
Yeah.
up, that mentoring where, learning from, yeah, yeah. But
Yeah,
it sounds like you were not in a place at that point where you were able to.
yeah. I don't, it's great now being older and kind of semi-retired and being able to look back on this stuff. But there are things that I could have done better, and I'm a lot better at now. But I just know that
All of
it's
us.
like it's a butterfly effect. I mean, I could fail to respond to someone or follow up for a week, and it could lead to the trickle down, trickle up, whatever you want to call it. That's going to lead to something bad. It impacted me. I was like, sure, I don't. I hate to see it because I still live around people who are involved with the court system, and it's not friendly. And
Right.
and if you're trying to get out of addiction and you have the courts on your back, I don't know how they do it. We have
So
a
much
guy who's
anxiety. Yeah, so
yeah,
much anxiety, and
anxiety is the biggest issue in America right now, all
it
the way around,
is
all
number
the way
one.
around. Yeah,
That's mental health. It's also the month of mental health awareness. Suicide is number one for young men. For all the
yeah,
searches, and just in now in this part that Chrissy and I've joined in, it puts you in the algorithms and it gets you into like where you're narrowing down. But it is, and that's like, so talking on anxiety, that of course was a huge part of both the boys' journeys of that escape, and having it be that anxiety at the core of it was what's going on. And so, it was, yeah, for you, it was alcohol.
yeah. And so, like, back to the story. In high school, I came from a family of drinkers. My both grandfathers were alcoholics, bad ones, and everyone partied and drank, and it seemed normal. And then we got to high school. We just happened to live in a town that was, pretty much a drinking town. It's probably
Yeah.
still is. And
Yeah.
back then it was just, that was the thing to do. We didn't have anything else to do, so we would put a
That's
keg
hard
in
to
the backyard.
escape. But yeah, that's hard to escape because you're just, you also just are that age and you want to be a part of things and be in the group. And then if it's the thing for you, somebody else can say that, okay, got through that stage, push that away, and it's already in and active.
Well,
Yeah,
And
in our town, Keith, and he can correct me on this too. Drinking was entertainment. It was entertainment. We'd go to the
that's
sweet
everywhere.
we
That's,
well,
yeah,
we had the street rate. Well, in our town, we'd all hang out in a parking lot and we'd go to the street
that was
races.
Ojai.
Remember the street
Yeah.
and
races?
Yeah.
and the
That's lit.
danger
That's, yeah.
and the danger
Go.
of that is, the addict brain. So we have, let's say, in our class, 25 guys, and we all drink a lot of beer. And but
Yeah.
one of us has this genetic, some malfunction wiring in the brain, and I poured gasoline onto the fire without knowing it, and
Mhm.
it took a long time to realize I just can't drink. And there, I'm not alone. We've lost classmates to the drink. They've
Mhm.
shot themselves. It's just it's ongoing, and
Yeah.
I was just they always say, I wish I knew now back then.
Always.
There's just no way to do that. But
There's no
I
way
have
to do
three,
that.
I have three kids
Hmm.
who like to drink, and I can't preach to them. Since they've seen me, they've been very careful. I've been pretty impressed with how well they
Yeah.
responded to the divorce and the car crash that I created. But I was, so we're all drinking really heavily, and my dad was into rock and roll, and he got my name from Keith Richards. I thought I was a rock star, and
Hmm.
like Christy said, the ego. They talk about it. The ego got too big. I thought I was a
Hmm.
rock star. Even into college, I just kept succeeding, 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 and ultimately it got too big for my britches, and the
Hmm.
chemicals caught up. The chemicals caught up. It just took longer than a lot of people because I was in pretty good shape because I was an
Yeah.
athlete. And ironically, that let me do it longer. And eventually, where it all started coming down in 2009 when really I was failing physically. That was the big
Yes.
turning point. And then you start realizing, I think I was in my early 40s. You start
Okay.
realizing, I'm not invincible, man.
Invincible. Yeah. Yeah. That when that,
And
then young men feel that, young women feel that, but young men, invincibility, willfulness, you can outrun it. It's not bad till it's bad. And then
yeah,
it's all those pressures. And like you said, you mentioned the court stuff, anything, and when fines start happening, like for people that would have a problem, that not the
yeah,
the fire that ignited in my son. Also, again with early on things with as we're talking about, had those things not been there, those were stressors that just kept building because the behaviors weren't changing, so the stressors weren't going away, and so it was building. And
But
yeah, so go ahead, Christy.
oh, well, like Keith was saying though, is through his journey, and he can add on this too. He had
Hmm.
so much success in spite of the drinking.
Yeah.
He's quite successful as an individual, and
Yeah.
the drinking didn't get in the way of attaining your success
Hmm.
until it did, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah. And of course, regrets are dangerous for us, but who knows what I would have done if had I not been drinking and doing drugs all that time. Who knows? It is what it is. You don't look in the rearview mirror, you look through the windshield. And
Absolutely.
y- I it's hard. This is luckily where I'm at. It's I can talk to young people, and I always have a deep in my heart a place for young people because I went through it, and I
Yeah.
just I love it when they turn around and succeed, and I help them to this day when I can. But I see them and I go, boy, I've done a lot of rehabs. I see the 23-year-olds coming thinking, oh, it's going to be, they either go all in immediately and get it right, which is the main theme of my book,
Hmm.
or have to become a rehab all-star, and you don't want to be a
Hmm.
rehab all-star. That's what the book's about.
No.
It's
So
like you
that's
don't have
Devin was a
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Devin was a rehab all-star. Devin, probably, and I say this, I've lost count. He went to rehab probably 15 to 18 times.
Mm.
But as we break stigma, as and as we try to reach the youth, it is an understanding that I didn't understand right away how common relapse is. And so
Mm.
that's something that Keith and other people in that program have taught me,
Mhm.
is that if you shame an individual, it keeps them more in their illness instead of trying to walk beside them. So I had to learn that because each time I was under the false impression that you go all in and then you're cured. But that's not how it works often,
Mm-mm.
right?
No. I
no.
mean, that full surrender is I think what we're talking about is needed, the full surrender. And when you're doing well in a rehab and there is no stressors, there's nothing but just feeling better, you're resting up, and it's that comfort bubble there. If the work's not being done while you're just in that space, soon as you get out of that space, you are in immediate, like, the bills are still there, the fines are still there, the girlfriend might not be with you. All those pains are still there. And so it's that full surrender. And
Well,
Yeah, that's a
I was
great
going to say
summary of my book right there. That's a great
and
summary of my book.
this
I'm
is
a rehab.
Keith's book right here.
yeah,
I'm a,
Yeah.
it's
there's
how to
a
survive outside of rehab, right? How to survive outside
Yeah,
of rehab.
uh, the way I word it is I'm a baseball nut. I'm an
Yeah.
all-star in rehabs. You put me in a rehab, I'm gonna excel. But
Yeah.
as soon as I get out, I'm a little leaguer.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's what I've had to learn. Is like, oh, I got to learn how to be an adult. I
Mhm.
should have grabbed this a long time ago, but it is
Yeah.
what it is.
You grabbed a lot of things. You grabbed a lot of things to want to get back, and that's what. And again, we can't go back. I can't go back. The whys and the what ifs will take me down. Will take us down as moms that have lost, and we're in a time of fentanyl, which is the crisis which we are raising awareness for. Is that, and the xylazine and the different drugs. They're even, but for now to have it be, alcohol can be, or idea was a longer, more painful journey. And with Dylan, it was the poison of fentanyl that took that time to go to rehab one more time away. It's this poison. So there's two layers here where it's, that's one that, it's the healing time of rehab, and then there's this like there's no more one more time. It's you cannot. That time is over. Like we were out of time. That time is over.
Yeah, the stakes are higher.
Yeah.
I'm just so glad you brought up the fentanyl matter because personally, as I promote this book, it's the message that I'm going to say over and over again is that we have a crisis of epic proportions with fentanyl in the United States. It's
Yes.
the media doesn't give it the attention that it needs.
No.
Frankly, the president's aware, which is why we're seeing a part of the reason why we're seeing some of the stuff on China
Thank
because
thank
to make
God.
fentanyl
Yes.
to make fentanyl you have to get chemicals that come from China.
Yeah.
It's not rocket science. And but
On the news,
I was
on
just
the news
talking.
right now, there's a big Mother's Day. Sorry to interrupt. That they are just the honoring to feel understood. The news is now talking about it where they weren't at all during the 2020 when COVID hit 2020, and then so again in and out of rehabs and treatments weren't saying anything. I don't know for you, Kristi, were they talking about like that was going to be that's the poison that was out there because you had more experience with the rehabs,
No, no.
right?
And we have different walks with rehabs, right, Keith? Because I'm the
Yep.
mother and you're the client in rehab. So my journey in rehab, and you can talk about this too, Keith, is that my journey was how I had to learn to support Devin, but a lot of Devin's struggles I didn't understand or know. And so there's a bit of mis I don't want to call it misinformation, but I can only help Devin with what I know. And there's a lot of privacy inside the rehabs, but sometimes that privacy is deadly when you're trying to support somebody. And I don't know about your take, Keith. That's why I would go,
There's a line in AA that in the big book that always sticks out, and it says we have to admit to our innermost self that we're alcoholic, and
Right.
that innermost self thing is a really important part. And
Right.
ultimately, a person has to decide deep down, okay, I'm
Themselves.
sick, I need help, and I can't do it myself because I tried.
Right.
I need something bigger than myself to help, and that's the hard message to get. I don't want to say even disparage young people. Look at me, you know.
Right.
It,
Right.
if you read my book in the forward starts with how I knew James for a long time, and he goes through a lot of my successes. But at the end of the forward is the rush, the mad rush by two angels to get me right where I'm sitting right now. So I'm
Mm.
in a weird position. I'm living through recovery as I'm promoting a book about how we didn't recover. It's
Right.
a kind of a fun position to be in. But James, that sometime I got out of that in July. They got me into the State Sober Living Hassle. I'm still in. And they got me back in, and he explained it in great detail. And I look back and I go, I don't know what worked, but I do know that in August, I happened to walk by a former church and I went in, and I have not missed a service a Sunday since. So
Mm.
basically I tacked on the church on top of what I already had, which is intensive outpatient program, which is the
Yeah.
follow up, the all important aftercare of rehab. I went
Yes.
from, I basically went back into IOP thanks to Kaiser. It's an awesome program. Stayed in IOP, and then what I recommend is it could be any combination of a whole bunch of things. But if you're really struggling, you need all the tools you can get, and you need to be consistent
All of
using
them.
them. So I was in
All.
IOP. I missed a single session. They were all Zoom called. That's why I'm so good at
You
this
showed
stuff.
up. Yeah, you
Yeah,
showed up.
and I did the IOP, and I just kept going to church, and I went so much that the pastor, this was really impressive. He pulled me aside one day. They had honored him after a service, surprised him and his wife, and called him up and told the whole story about how they found him. Because now it's hard to find talent, and it was really touching. And at the end, this is his life, probably the biggest thing in his whole life. And he's off to the side. He's talking to the little crowd. They're congratulating. And I'm walking by. I'm kind of like peeking by. I'm just going to lap him on the shoulder, get out of there to go to the beach or whatever more important I had to do. And he reached back and he touched my arm and said, "Hey, you have any time this week to go to lunch?" And I'm like,
Mm.
"Yeah, of course I do."
Mm.
It was an honor. I'm like,
Yeah.
never in my life have I been asked to go chat with the past. It was like,
I.
okay.
Yeah.
And then I went, and
Mm.
and all he wanted to do was listen.
But you
He took
went,
me to this,
and you went,
yeah,
and you didn't, and there was that part of you that was ready to go, where, that's the thing, is that you took the hand, and beyond that, it was just so you starting to go for yourself, and then that happened, but just that just building that feeling of security that, you were in the right place.
Well,
yeah.
and
It
I
was
think
Yeah,
go
because you
ahead,
oh, it's
didn't
Keith.
just hard
yeah,
to, it's hard to even explain why the church has helped. And I don't want to, it could be spirituality is how AA
right,
turns it, a
right.
higher power. And I knew all along that I needed spirituality and that I liked it and I liked how it made me
Mhm.
feel. But what I realized is, the biggest issue with, I think, anyone in addiction is the weird human desire to control. You
Mhm.
feel like you have to control everything. And I'm here to tell you, you don't.
We're
You
not in
can't.
control. We're
You
not in
can't.
control.
So
Yeah,
why
and
worry about
so
it? So why worry about
yeah,
it? That's what,
you can.
my thing is, you have to have faith that things
Mhm.
will work out. If you do the right thing, that things will happen. That's it. But
Yeah,
it's hard to get that message to young people who are competing with other young people, the things they see that they like.
yeah,
Nice car, nice house, nice girl,
So,
whatever.
yeah.
It's a
if
hard
you could
message.
tell it, since I do want to, one of my passions is trying to normalize sobriety, trying to have society not use alcohol as a form of entertainment, because for me, that's one of my struggles is as youth, we want to fit in, right? That's something that we want to do is fit in. Not everybody that drinks is an alcoholic. Not everybody that is going to smoke weed will develop an addiction. But for many of our youth, it starts right there. It starts right there. And as one of breaking the stigma as well for me is wanting people to understand that on those times where either Devin relapsed, and I'll talk about Devin, it wasn't something he wanted to do. It I remember asking Devin one time, what stops it? Yeah, I mean, come on, what happened? And he's like, Mom, I have no idea. I was out, I was walking by a place, I bought a substance and I took it, and before I realized I need to go back to rehab. And so often, one of those things I've learned through walking with other people in the journey is having them explain that same thing to me, because my approach was more like, what is your problem, just not understanding. So I'm breaking the stigma. If I can help another family who still their child still has breath in their lungs, what would you say? How can we reach? Or just can you add on to that?
It's all of that's really important. The two biggest things that I've carried out of rehab, out of all this experience, the two tools that I use, I go back to all the time, and one is pause when agitated. That's huge. If something bothers you internally, makes you nervous, whatever it is, just pause. You don't have to act immediately, and
Pause.
don't make a permanent problem out of a temporary feeling. And then
Yeah,
the second part is play the tape forward.
yeah,
Imagine in your mind, okay, if I take that hit, I'm going to do this. And my experiences, you'll see me in 3 weeks. So I'll probably visit the ER or jail. Blah, blah, blah.
mhm,
This is what happens to me.
yeah,
And ironically, through this whole process, I had to go to anger management classes, and I actually learned a lot. And that's
mhm,
part of it. Now if I get upset, I think about, okay, if I smack that guy and didn't get arrested, then a whole cascade of really bad
um,
things are going to happen. So I don't do it. In
yeah.
fact, it's like a spidey sense that I have now. I'm like, I just know that that's not good for me.
Those are two
Um,
great tools to pause. That's like even in just reactivity and in grief, and so in all layers of what I'm now walking, what Christy's walking, and so many others. But yeah, but for those in active addiction, that pausing, so which is really difficult to do as a parent when you are like in that mode with your loved one, your son or daughter. That pausing. Now I have also so much you can say now if I knew now what I what I knew then, what I knew now, because now I started going to Al-Anon immediately to speak with other moms and other people, just to understand this thing that had just, shattered my life, but just like understand it deeper. And then it's like, okay, so all the things just started making me feel like, wow, like, but you can't go back, but it's just that pausing in that moment. We're human beings. We're not going to have the right answer. That you're in fight or flight for a lot of it, and it's like just we're getting through a minute. But for the young person, any age, but those are two great tools. Pausing and then fast forward. What is the outcome if I do this? Knowing my past history with this, will I call the Uber or will I drive? It's that, and more often than not with someone that can't control it is, you're going to fast forward to where you just said that it's, you might see yourself sitting in a jail cell or worse.
Yeah, and it's I can say it now. I'm trying to live it, and really, the people get to me and like, "Hey, how'd you recover?" I'm not recovered.
Yeah.
I'm just a baby. I'm 9
It's one
months
day at
in
a
right
time.
now,
Yeah.
and it.
But don't take away
I just
all your sober time, Keith. You're 9 months in
it's
this time. Do
not
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 forget all that time you did have
I think
sobriety.
what he's saying though is that the humbleness is what keeps you going. Like being, it's like, cause he had just shared, I'm just reflecting on that as sort of like that, but what kept it going was that I'm above this and I can kind of I'm kind of that rock star and that but now the humbleness that faith allows and spirituality, faith, God for me, first and foremost, but it's that, and whatever is for someone, honoring all of that. It is just that humbleness of that we don't have the answers. Take the hand that has lived it and can walk you through it, and raise the hand and be like, I'm tapping out. I don't have the answers, and go through the door that's marked help and say, I need help.
yeah.
And take, yeah.
The big book in AA surrender is a huge thing. I mean, that's ultimately it, and
Yeah.
it works. The problem challenge is making the afflicted understand that and then put it into practice. And that
Yeah.
ultimately, like I said, back in August, late July, early August, I'm detoxing and sober living, and I'm like, what am I going to do? Ultimately, something happened. I don't know what it is. I don't really care. I don't need to know the reason, but something happened. And you know what they just did for me, it was like what they call it the cross. It was a bridge from here to there. It was a
Mm-hmm.
bridge. I
Yeah.
had these angels, pick me up and get me to where I'm living now. I'm like, you, you can't dismiss that.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
So ultimately, I'm like, and then the book was already written. By the way, the book was written in April. I didn't crack my laptop open for months because I was drunk, and
Yeah.
I crack it open. It's sitting there. It's done. I
Yeah.
spent a month editing it, and then the writing part's been a real help this time. And I'm still trying to piece together how I can transfer that to people who are struggling, like how they can write more, because people don't write as much today anymore.
Right. And
But
yeah.
I just found that writing out my whole history from like the moment, I remembered a lot. I was like, oh, that's when I did that. And, and my book's too big. I wrote too much, but it was therapeutic. And then
Yeah.
I got to go, then I got to type, I wrote it by hand, by the way, in rehab by hand in notepads. I had to type it all back in, so I had to read it
Yeah.
again. And then I had
Pen
to
to
edit it
paper though,
again.
there's that pen to paper when you're in for me doing grief work, and I've shared with other moms, pen to paper, because yeah, there's something about that, like, comes out of, from your physical rather than typing, but you have that, the memories are going, and I look back now and I see the writings that I wrote early on, but pen to paper is, however you can get it out, but your feelings out on paper with your hand is beautiful. Yeah.
That's actually, I'm glad you brought that up, because journaling's not that hard if you want to do it in recovery. It's one page every guy, just one page. I mean, if you want to go longer, that's cool, but one page, maybe three questions each time, what I
Mhm.
did, what I learned, one page. But what I
Mhm.
found helpful and fascinating through the years is going back and reading what I'd wrote maybe just 3 months before. I'm like,
Mm.
wow, I don't think that way anymore.
Yeah.
So the human brain is amazing and how it adapts and changes. And then, you go back 2 years and, I'm like, that to me, going back and reading old entries, which is even my book, I'll get to
Mm.
I have a new thing with the blog. I'll just crack the book open randomly. Whatever page it is, I got to write it out. That's what I do.
Yeah.
And then it always makes me laugh. I'm like, there's something I'm like, I don't even feel like that now. That was only a few months ago. But
Yeah.
I explain at the time, and I always try to give a little, my blog has a lot of background. It basically expands upon the book on an ongoing basis. It's like a living, breathing document. Is the way I perceive it.
Can you kind of just for the reader, like for the viewers, and also but for reading, like taking your book, but page, where do you start? Where is your like what your
Okay.
intro?
Yeah. So we had the intro by James, who's a friend of mine from long ago. I ended up the book's written got published because of James and his desire to do his bio, his memoir called Super Stoked. It's called Super Stoked by James Swanson, and I edited it for a year. He hit me up. I
Hmm.
spent a year walking him through the process. I've never edited a book, but I knew I had to get him to write, so I kind of tricked him. It was like a little. He'd send me. I just write more, write more, write more,
Yeah.
write more, and
Yeah.
he wrote the whole book. And he wrote the whole book, and he found the publisher. And that's how it started. So he writes the intro. They drop me off here. Then I do a brief bio. I didn't want this. My book's not a bio. It's a memoir of experiences of 5 rehabs. Of course, I did it 13 times, but that's my book's about 5 rehabs. And
Okay.
so the bio's brief. I even titled it Bio Econo, meaning it's an economy bio. It's just
Hmm.
compact. I don't get into
Yeah.
details about which baseball cards I had. And then I go right into the first story, which is a friend who I call Anna because I couldn't get permission to use her name by her family. And a girl I had met in rehab in 2018, and she was all cut up. She got DUI car crash. And long story short, by the end of the year, I get a message from one of her friends that she had died, and my friend had um, quit drinking again, had a seizure, fell backward, hit her head, and died.
Yeah.
That was in 2018, and that's the
Yeah.
story of Emma. So I go, that's really to set the stage for like how dangerous this really is. And
Yes.
then it goes into from my bio. The bio ends like basically ends with the crash and burn that started the rehabs, and then I go right into one at a time. Like I did
Yeah.
the Lake Arrow, a whole chapter on Lake Arrowhead 3 times in 1 year. I did that, and of course I complained the whole time, and I would only do 30 days, and I was
Hmm.
always in a hurry to get out to go work, and which is a danger.
That's a
And
thing that I've got to go to work, and I would always say to my son that this is your work. And Dylan did not do the All-Star rehab run or like Devin has had beautiful experiences that Chrissy has shared so deeply with me. Dylan was never wanting to be there. He was at times when it was like the time to like I would say, he knew it was time to do something, and he would like and if we were to give something, it would be for that. Like if we give that, it'll be for the, it would be for something, and it would be a time frame in his mind, but it would definitely not be something that he was there to learn something, surrender something, and it was sort of baffling to me, to his father, to, we were, why would he walked, he would walk, he would go in and he would walk and a few within hours, sometimes with some, within a couple days for another. The longest time he stayed was when he met a girl that was very hopeful. There was this, I'm going to stay for 6 months and do the program. And it just wasn't for him. And he felt he was missing something somewhere else. That was a lot of the thing for his mind, though, and like I said, it was baffling. It's cunning and baffling, right?
yeah, then that segues well into the next story, and I go to I leave the third time, then my wife leaves, and all kinds of bad stuff happens, and so I have some connecting chapters like in between. I try not to get it. I skip sober living houses completely because that's the next book. It's too much. It's just so
Yeah.
much to write about. But I end up going to another rehab in the San Fernando Valley, where Kristi and I grew up, and that was an eye opener. Basically, I had complained the whole time while I was at AIA. I get into this more of a public supported county bed, and it was just bad. And I was like, holy moly.
A lot of people can recover if that's their time at those places, though.
So I get
You know.
in, and they don't give me an end date. I'm there for like I don't know many months, 3 or 4. It's crowded. Of course I don't like it because I wasn't ready. And a new girlfriend sneaks me out, and I leave, and nothing good happens. So the next chapter is the big one is the Salvation Army. So then I crash and burn in our hometown. I get an angel sweeping again and get me to Long
Mm,
Beach, California, and I'm in another rehab.
mm,
And it was the worst one yet. It was
yeah,
like the message was sent from
yeah,
above, like it's only getting worse. It's jails,
yeah,
institutions, and debt. They say. So I
yeah.
spend 10 months there that time, 5 months the next year.
So
So I
you
did
stayed
15.
10 months. I'm sorry to interrupt you. 10 months at the Salvation Army.
Yes, I did. I did all three
Okay.
phases. I
Yeah,
finished the 6 month program. I
yeah,
signed up for phase two, which is keep working their warehouse, but you can look for work. They give you like a day
yes.
off, and
And
then
each,
and you get a
yeah.
job. It's a decent program actually. You get a job, and you're allowed to
Mm-hmm.
stay 3 paychecks for 2 months, and then you
Yep.
had to go. So I did 10 months. I did the whole deal,
Yep.
and I lasted a few months, but my mom died during this process, and I crashed and burned, and I came back. I
Yeah.
did another 5 at the Salvation Army. The second time I got kicked out. I failed a P test. And,
Yeah.
you have to read it, and then the worst chapter of all, probably the biggest one in the whole book, is the one that's just on 1 year, on 2017. I did a whole chapter. It was so bad. I wanted to explain to people this is what can happen if you purposely fight the need to go to rehab, which is what I did the whole year.
Yeah.
I absolutely not going back. No way.
Yeah.
No,
That is
no. I'm
so,
gonna do
that's such an
whatever it takes.
important part to
Yeah.
share. That
Well,
point of fighting it.
well,
Yeah.
well, that book was what opened James' eyes because he's reading my chapters as I write him, and he just wrote back, "Holy moly, I had no idea. This is insane." And I go, "That was a 14-month period.
Yeah.
People had no idea that what I was going through, where I was. A lot of people online thought I was dead." And so there's a whole
Mm.
chapter on just 2017, and I
We
somehow
were
snapped
all
out of it.
asking. Yeah, we were all asking, where's Jaco?
That's
Where's
not even an
Jaco?
exaggeration. I get
It's not
text
an
every all the
exaggeration.
I get messages all the time, you know. Yeah, we really didn't think you were alive. And I end
Yeah.
up crawling back to my dad as usual, or biggest angels in the book. And he gets me well enough to get into the Redgate in Long Beach, another rehab. And it gets better. It started, I'm like, wow, I don't know, I can't say it was just better than the last two that I was at, which were
Yeah.
really bad. And I did two stays there, but it was the beginning of the second one was the big changing point when they gave me the same counselor, which is pretty rare when you go back. They usually give you another counselor, but I got the
Mm,
same guy who's now in charge of it. He was like one
yeah.
of the counselors, and he
Yeah.
he looked me in the eye. And this is not someone the only thing we related on was sports, but he was an African American, younger
Mm-hmm.
than me, short, um, very smart, but this time he just said, I go in the first meeting. I'm not happy to be there. And he said, what happened? And I explained to him. And then he says, Keith, to make recovery last, you have to make it first.
Yeah.
That was it. And I leave the meeting. I'll never forget. I go back to my bunk bed and I'm laying there. I'm staring at the roof and I'm mad. I'm like, what a
Yeah.
jerk. I'm like, screw him. The classic
Mm, yeah.
AA attitude. But somewhere in the first few days, it hit me while laying in that bed, going, you know what? He's right. I think I'm really sick.
Yeah.
He might just have a point that they've been trying to tell me for the last 5 years. So
Yeah.
I started to get better. And that I always remember that. That's in the book too. But anyway, it still didn't work. I went back to Redgate and I went into this wonderful um Christian-based organization called Christian Outreach and Action there in Long Beach. And
Yeah.
I met a guy, literally another angel. I'm homeless. I'm in a ER bed, and
Mm,
some guys, some volunteers cleaning up. And he sees my bag. He's like, "Hey, if you're homeless, you should go to Christian Outreach and Action," which I already knew about because that's where I ate a lot. And I'm like,
yeah.
"Oh, that's cool." But he gave me his number for some reason. I didn't lose it. And
Yeah.
I'm in Redgate the second time. I called Jimmy, and he gets me an interview with the executive director. And lo and behold, I transitioned into a whole year living at COA downtown Long Beach, volunteering 20 hours a week, helping the homeless in exchange for free rent. Of course,
Yeah.
I got free food and clothes and all that other stuff, and met a lot of wonderful people. And what an
Yeah.
experience!
I was
I
going to
spent the
say
whole year.
so,
I spent the
so
whole year
much.
with the homeless. And the homeless
Yeah.
situation is bad now. It's way worse now.
Yeah.
I just dealt with it this morning. So I did that for a year, and at the end of that, kind of in the middle of it, I end up meeting someone from our class, from me and Kristi's class. I found I had been in love with Maui, and we kept dating, and COVID hit, and our lives switched together, and eventually, I
COVID.
moved to,
Yeah.
I moved in with her. The whole chapter on like that whole process and how I ended up here by pretty much. I keep telling people I ended up here by accident.
Yeah.
There's no plan. Like how'd you get to Maui?
Yeah.
I just
Yes.
it's a classic addict thing. I just did. I
Can you
have a I have a
touch on, yeah, well, again, just the things you learned along the way that you just shared are so deep. Those impressions of just seeing, again, being of service, a huge part, I think, for a lot of maybe that's a point I wanted to get out would be that, that we're always better when we're being of service and we're taking away from our what feeding our things, what we need, what we're not getting, we're hurting us. That's become a huge part for me, just that, as long as I feel I am being of service, it helps with my grief. It helps me understand that I'm not in control. You meet so many people that will share that part of that surrender that is, that's the biggest thing, the things you learn along the way. But there's a there's like, there's no rhyme or reason of why, a young life doesn't get to, we can analyze that all day, but the point for me has come to just release it, to surrender. Serenity prayer is that I'm not in control, and it wasn't a tragic car accident. It was his struggle, and it was with Kristi, there was the struggle. And until that surrender or time was given in life that fentanyl took away, or some, it didn't get to his, he didn't get there. I always feel in my heart like he would have gotten that there, because both our boys, Dylan was, huge hearted, and he would give his jacket he would give his things away to help people. He was that kid. He was that guy. His earthly life, his being was, he taught kids how to skateboard when he, during COVID. So when COVID hit, I just wanted to touch on that because you mentioned that, like, life just went crazy. These younger people, well, I'll just say all age, the isolation, if you were affected by, like, so they filled in skateboard parks with sand. Dylan was highly anxiety. He had a lot of anxiety, but then let's just say they started sending the checks out to people that had drug addiction problems or alcohol addiction problems, and then there was COVID money, and it was like it was like the perfect storm for those that we will see this coming into generations to come that are still feeling out what's going on, uneasiness, anxiousness around. It caused so much damage, and the money was just, and I was talking to someone the other day, I think Kristi and I both were, and they hadn't heard of that, and that it was baffling that it was just like, because once he got word that there was money, he wasn't even really thinking about it. But I wanted to make sure that he had that coming. He had had a job prior to COVID hitting, restaurant work. It was just enough. You really, they were just giving it to anybody. So it was
But
like, because he had, yeah,
I think that's why it's so important to get Keith's message out there, because his book is one of recovery through the stages
yeah,
of
yes, the
being an
stages.
all-star rehab. But the damage of COVID, which you can talk about, Keith, because he knows
Yes, that's why
politics. He's
I
very
wanted to
smart.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
um it's important to listen to your message,
yeah,
and for either us or young readers to see, because the damages of COVID will be for years to come. And what the youth
yeah,
are dealing with is a whole different ballgame than
yes,
what we dealt with. Do you
Absolutely,
agree with that?
absolutely. Christy knows me. At the very beginning of COVID, I'm in Long Beach. I'm thinking there's something off here. Yeah, but I'm thinking from someone who's in recovery, I'm like, this lockdown thing's gonna kill a lot of people. I
mm-hmm,
started saying it early on, and I still believe it that the response to the pandemic is gonna kill way more people than this virus ever will, and it's still here to this
absolutely,
day, and it's still killing. And
yeah,
I saw a girl early on. She was in Red Gate with me. She was young, heroin addict, and she gets out of Red Gate and she gets a apartment in the valley. This is like February, March 2020. She gets an apartment in the valley with a boyfriend, which is not recommended early in recovery, but whatever. She got a job and she was working and she was clean.
mm-hmm,
Then COVID hit and she got laid off. And within a month, she was dead.
mm,
Her boyfriend overdosed. That was all she wrote. And she was a beautiful girl. And I had her photo. And I went on a Patch is like a online newspaper that I happen to be a writer for, so I was allowed to post stuff. So I posted her photo and I wrote an article saying, "This is the face of the lockdown right here."
Wow. Oh, that's
And
powerful.
people were, I was so mad. I'm like,
Yep.
you just killed this young person who
Oh,
was
yeah.
doing well.
Absolutely. No, my
And
son
then
walked from rehab because he was told to take the girl the time he met the girl. And these are the stories that I will tell. I will like be on the pulpit as hard as I can because it's like, and I've been shut down. Friends have like, said your posts are worrying, not, they're worrying you, not, you're not worried about me because I've lost my son. I'm in grief. My posts are worrying you. I'm really, what COVID did was I was writing about early on. I also, just like you said, I knew what this was going to do. And Dylan was anti-vax. He was he would drink only bottled water. I mean, he would, put poison in his body, alcohol, and the other things we know would, but it was just this that he wouldn't do microwave food. So vaccinations were a thing. So when I started feeling you know, when we started knowing that you had to be vaccinated, so certain rehabs, so he walked, the girl that he was with told me, I have it in her text, they told him to get vaccinated or he had to leave, he left. And that was where he had just said he'd stay because that girl was there and he was there for it was time. And he was felt so strongly about being vaccinated, that, or not vaccinated, that he walked. And
and he was
and I wanted to like write a letter to them and say, and because of that, my son, it's not because of, but there is just that like you guess it's so anger causing. Because yeah,
yeah, it
it's
is.
real.
It is. And back on that, I mean, it hasn't ended. We have a
No.
lot of
Mm-mm.
mental health illness because of the lockdowns.
Yeah.
And right now, I'm just speaking for Maui. The
Yeah.
fentanyl problem is massive.
Yeah. I've heard it's
I was
growing
in
there.
my last rehab. I'm in rehab, and a guy from the streets that I knew came in. I'm like, "Hey, Chris, what's going on, man?" Hey, as we talk, this was just last May, June. He's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, you remember Marcus? He was the tall, skinny, homeless guy who swam 2 miles a day, healthy.
Yeah.
He's dead." That's Savannah. Oh, you mean that kind of cute little chubby blonde girl in Kia? Yeah, yeah. Oh, she's dead. And he reeled off 5 or 6 people who had died in like the last 6 months in Kia. It's
Yeah.
not normal for that many people to die. Fast
Yeah.
forward to just this Wednesday, 2 days ago, I'm in a Celebrate Recovery meeting at Salvation Army with my pastor and early on, and there's one guy in recovery there and a homeless woman, and the subject came up, and I go, "Well, how many? Do you guys know anyone else?" Because me and the pastor knew one guy who used to walk the streets of Louis with a helmet. He was a character. We all knew him. And he was a good guy. He knew me from a little house, and we used to talk. I gave him money sometimes. And Pastor Mark, he died. He was almost positive it was fentanyl. I
Ugh.
looked at the next guy and I go, "You know anyone who died?" And he said he knows 20 people who've been killed by fentanyl. 20 people.
Page, how is it not like it's like just the ticker tape is just all day long of this amount of loss. It's
Why
Yeah.
just
is it
it's
not on there?
I said,
It's
how is it and
no, no,
why
no,
isn't it? Yeah.
because why isn't it? Because it makes people uncomfortable. It will
Yes.
make
But it's
people uncomfortable, and because people, um, Keith, I don't know if you've experienced this, because if you have an addiction, somehow it's your fault. And so but that's the point of breaking stigma. And that's the point of wanting people to share their stories, is because those that have found recovery, you have knowledge I don't have. And
I mean, that's just the fentanyl part for me is that when you have a young person that's just never, that wasn't going to, they just try one time and they take an Adderall or they take a Xanax because they get it from they have anxiety and they can't get it from their doctor. They can't go to like a detox that's like in a local space that's safe. And you can say, here's one to get you to the next moment of where you don't take something that's going to kill you. And here's a doctor's appointment. Those things that are missing, and because they're not being talked about, that's what I'm like, advocating for, is that because it's a poison. And so it's beyond breaking stigmas for me, because the addiction part is, that person does have to ultimately get to the surrender and the space of, and if it's at 18, 30, 40, 16, those ages, the fentanyl takes that time away. It takes the
Well, and
yeah.
it's allowing, like, I don't wanna say us or Keith, but I almost feel like it's my job to make people uncomfortable because in discomfort comes change. So if
Yeah. Yeah,
sharing
that's we gotta have the
so
uncomfortable
and I
conversations for sure. Yeah, it's
right,
not
so I'm
easy
so
sharing
great
to them. Yeah.
so
I
I'm
think
so
Yeah.
grateful
a
for your
big
book.
well
Yeah.
a big part of my philosophy or approach to life now is, Kristi was the first one to bring up to me, recover out loud. Nothing wrong with that. And I'm
Yes.
lucky that I'm in a place. Here's the challenge, and hopefully maybe I do something towards maybe not, but I'm in a position where I can recover out loud. I can't be punished by employers, future employers,
Right.
anyone. You can't hurt me. And
Right. You
that
can't
makes
hurt me anymore. Then
that
there's
well,
so yeah.
but I still get shadow banned on Facebook. It's going to happen. People don't want to hear it, but uh, I've even had friends read the book who've said, you could have edited it more, like take out some of the gory details. And I'm like, the book is a point in time. That is exactly, I'm leaving it where it is. I'm not going back to edit it. It is what it is. I'm getting
Yeah.
it out there because I can, because a lot of people can't because they'll get fired or they
Yeah.
won't get a decent job or, my odds of dating right now are pretty slim. I mean,
No,
there's no way to
I wanna
Google,
read that your book. I can't wait
there's
to
no way
read
to
your book.
Google there's
Yeah.
no way to Google my name and not see Rehab All-Star now. So I'm out.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was important. It was important enough to get out there to go look.
Yeah.
It was important to get to my friends and family members who didn't know. Maybe they thought I was doing it on purpose or I was suicidal. That's not why. I had one.
Yeah.
Now they know. A lot of my friends were very appreciative. We had no idea where you were or what you were
Yeah.
going through. Good.
Yes.
I'm glad you know. But others, I want to explain, and I'm explaining it here, the true dangers of addiction. And I say addiction meaning alcoholism too, because alcohol is a drug. The
Absolutely.
true dangers of it. And RFK Jr. said something when he was running for president that I've always found fascinating. He said, they said, "Hey, aren't you afraid of being killed?" Because his uncle and his father. And he
Mhm.
said, "No, there's worse things than dying." And
Yes.
you don't want to live like that. And my message is, you don't have to be a rehab all-star. Yes, it was
Yeah.
fun, and I threw some spitballs. We had some good practical jokes, but you don't have
Yeah.
to do it. It's time consuming. It's hurtful for the families. It's
Oh.
costly. You name it. You don't have to do that. And I'm just in
So you
a
left it all
better
in the
place
book
now.
for everyone to learn from. You the messy, the real, the deep, and that's what, Christy and I share too. It's like we lay it all out there for other mothers and other parents to understand that, when you are in, this the parent side, the parental side, and and yes, our boys were older, but your child, always your child, and there's nothing, but so we did different approaches also, like but just that, so the story of his addiction, and again, the pain that, seeing your, I'll just say sons for us. Of course, so many beautiful angels, sons and daughters, but with us, our boys, it's the pain of watching them in addiction is you die 1,000 times a day, when waiting for the calls, when they're in the, and, so yeah, like, I'm so grateful that more books like, and again, just having lived experience that nothing's edited out. I loved just the rawness of, I really grasped a lot of, like, from when Matthew Perry shared just how it was, just from that childhood feel, like it's like a really good analogy of just how his friends were like drinking, and they, and he was young, and he was kind of going through a lot, going back and forth to parents, and my son experienced that with divorce, and so early kind of trauma hits, but like his friends were drinking, and they were like, "Oh, that was awful. We're never gonna do that again." He was like, "That was the most comforting feeling of my life to feel that," and I just got it.
One of one of the best gifts, Keith, you gave me was it was a time right after Devin died, and we all were together as a class, and I'm like, "Where's Jaco?" And and I knew, and I'm like, "Where's Jaco? I saw him the night before. Where is he?" And I had an idea. So then went over and I saw him, and I sat down with him, I held Keith's hand, and he's like, "I trust you, Kristi." And I'm like, "You've got to come with me." And you gave me a gift that day by just saying, "I trust you." And
Mm,
by hearing you say, "I trust you" in one of your not so good times, um, thank you.
mm.
Thank you.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
you guys drove me. They drove me all the way to LAX and waited for that plane. They wanted to see me get on the plane. That's how bad I
Mm,
was, and I
mhm,
still relapsed after that. It's like
mhm,
you write my book, and I'm like, I'm not healthy mentally. I mean, I feel like I am better now. But
mhm.
boy, there, if it took a whole book to teach me that, I'm hard headed. That's all I can say.
Well, that saying
Um,
that they say that, that the most sensitive are those that do struggle with addiction and will start with their inner, their own feelings of just, again, like just that, Dylan was super sensitive, but so you feeling like you said, Kristi, and again, that you showing going out somewhere so soon after Devin, when grief is going on, it's like just all cards are done. It's like nothing makes sense. It's wonky. It's a out of body experience, right? So you probably just in that moment wanted to feel support from your friends also, but also to feel like this did not
I don't
happen,
know.
complete denial. The stage of denial and all of that is just it's written down in books because it's true. Those stages are real. It's denial and it's like pleading, acceptance and all the different things. And uh
well, it gets
yeah.
back to what I told you about when you first called with your son, and remember, my perception was that I didn't do enough to help prevent. I think you had that same human instinct with me. You just lost a son. It was like 2 weeks before, and he was freshly grieving, and you're like, I'm not going to let it happen to someone else I love. I think
Mm,
that's what gave me. That's really. It was like, and she was not going to let it go, but this took a couple of days. This wasn't a
mm,
it's
yeah.
extraction. This was an operation. And
Um,
she stuck with
can,
me. She drove me to
yeah.
the airport, and
Yeah.
she wouldn't stop to let me get a beer on the way. And
I he he walked out of the hospital at one time, and I chased him back, and I took him to another one. And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Dad."
oh yeah,
Your
that was bad.
parents, can we touch on your parents? So for again, in the early stages, you were, what age was it that it was clear that it was a problem for you, and where did it start with your parents and their behaviors with you, and did you find that helpful, those kinds of things, or unhelpful?
I wrote about that in the book actually because years later, someone in AA said it was an old timer I respected. He said, if you have one problem with alcohol, whatever it is, an injury, arrest, you're an alcoholic. And it's like, wow. So it made me think back, and I wrote about this in the book. Made me think back, and I'm like, the very first time I drank beer, not with adults, I'm a goofy sip here or there, but when I was with like my friends, the very first time in junior high, I got caught.
Yeah.
The first
I
time. So
I always told
I look
Dylan,
back on it.
you'll be the one that'll always get caught. I would say that. I said, I'm sorry, that's
Yeah.
just the way it's going to be. You will be the one.
Junior
Yeah.
And
high.
I chuckle. I chuckle about that. I'm like, well, that means I was an alcoholic when I was 15. So, but then another one was in high school. One night, I was drinking with a friend at his place. I don't know. I got too drunk. I decided I'm gonna go home. But I was in the same track, so it was like 4 blocks. I'm gonna go home. I still couldn't make it. I was like, oh man, it was back when we were smoking clubs, so I didn't feel good. I was like, I'm just gonna pull over and go to sleep. Well, the neighbors didn't like that, and the cops knocked on the door. They took me to the police station, and I don't think I was. I don't know. It wasn't enough for suspicion of being under alcohol. It was
That was kind of the
suspicion of
time
being
when you
on.
can call parents for a ride home, right? Or you can
That's
get,
what
or,
happened. That's what
yeah.
happened. So they bring me in. They think I'm on something else. They're trying to figure it
Yeah.
out. They're looking at
Mm.
all my freckles on my wrist, like I'm injecting. I'm like, no, I didn't do any drugs. And my dad came and this is my mom. And I'm like, I didn't know what's going on, but of course I was scared. I was at the police station. And eventually one of them said, did you smoke any clothes? I said, yeah. And he said, it causes the same eye movement as DC people. So they
Mhm.
let me go. So
Yeah, they were strong.
this is
Yeah.
like 2 years after the junior high incident. So I had two pretty big ones early on that pretty much looking back says you're an alcoholic. You probably shouldn't drink alcohol. So my
What were
parents,
your dad's response? Yeah.
yeah, but my parents, the children of the '60s, very young parents. I mean, they pretty much got married because of me, and
Mhm.
and they were, I wouldn't say hippies, but happy-go-lucky, had a lot of fun. My dad
Mm-hmm.
surfed, skied, they
Mm-hmm.
liked to gamble. But
Yeah.
they were,
Hippie
you
parents
know,
here.
they were,
Hippie
they
parents.
were, they were, they were actually kind of strict. They were kind of strict when I was younger. I remember, I mean, they cared, and I did come home drunk a few times, and they schooled me, and I got in trouble having parties and stuff, but it never was over the top. Yeah, I wouldn't call it enabling. That's a that's a I think that's a
Like
term
maybe
for
you'll grow
something
out of it. You'll grow through it. Maybe like, yeah,
or
yeah.
yeah.
And it
I think
was,
they just
yeah,
want to be. Eventually, I went to college, and I think eventually they just wanted me out of the house. So like, maybe you'll get a job. They didn't throw flags up. They were never hardcore. Dude, you're gonna kill someone out there. It was never. If they did, it didn't register.
yeah,
And so they were. It's hard to. I don't blame them whatsoever, but you know, I think it was more of an impact of the environment that I was in, not them. It was
yeah,
I'm going to college. Everyone's happy go lucky. Then I'm still hanging out with the high school buddies and drinking a lot of beer.
yeah,
Um, I was already stuck in this loop, and I was still playing ball and going to drink after games, and it was more really
yeah,
me. It
yes,
wasn't. I can't blame my parents. Could they have changed it? I don't know. Like we'll never know. And there's no reason to even try.
yeah,
I think they did a darn good job, frankly.
yeah,
And I was doing fine for many years as a professional and
yeah,
raised three kids, and they're all doing pretty well. I got two daughters in grad school right now. One's about ready to get her master's, so
mm-hmm.
they're doing
Mm.
pretty well. They're amazing people, but I, it's so hard as a parent. Like I, yeah, I think about it. My kids never had that problem. They never, uh, amazingly, I think the marijuana is more of an issue now than
It is.
alcohol. It's not as dangerous, but I want to add this couple caveats. One, it still tickles the same neurological pathways as alcohol and other drugs. I don't care what
Yeah,
anyone said. It
yeah.
gateway's a silly term, but why
It's
even
so
bother?
strong. It's so strong.
I got this broken live wire in my brain. Why take?
Yep,
I don't even drink
yep,
kava anymore.
yeah.
But the second thing
It's,
is, no one's ever studied the long-term impacts of smoking marijuana for like 3 decades.
yeah, they're
And we're
doing
seeing a
it.
lot
They're
of
doing it now. Thank God they are because of
we're seeing a
the
lot of people
psychosis. Yeah,
my age,
yeah,
um, and older who are mentally ill. And these
yes.
are people who smoke pot a lot. And they have
Mm-hmm.
been for a long time. And the pot's
Mm-hmm.
gotten a lot stronger. And there's some just serious mental damage that has
Yeah.
happened that I'm sure
Well,
that
being out of reality, and then how high the strains are. And again, it's sort of like when we're talking about like the one that will become in the group of three boys, one will be the addict, one will not, or two, the two won't. The one with the weed is going to, it's in there. That will be, if it's that age group, it's 16 to like say 24. It, if enough weed is smoked, and didn't know it then myself either when Dylan was just, that's the lighter thing in my mind because I also had very laid back, easygoing divorced parents, but grew up in a hippie town. And that was like, I'm getting lucky here. There's nothing. He's a skateboarder. But the weed, watching and going back to watching him, how his thinking was and how altered reality was, how the anxiety grew within it. And he would say it was his medicine. It would help with anxiety. And it actually, I could see him literally increase it tenfold when being stoned. And then when he wasn't stoned, there was the anger part that would come with it. So just not feeling right in his body, but that he thought it was helping him, and it was absolutely, and he was believing it's legal. And then it was COVID, it was being delivered to the door, and all of the things that you couldn't go to church, but you could have weed delivered. So it just is, it's another notch on me for me, just of like, and just thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that, acknowledging that, because I've had so many people really bash me for, like, again, on the social media part, or in just if I have my strong feeling on it. If you watch until you watch your child or anyone you love going into psychoses from what they're honest, just want that the weed. It's yeah, it's almost like, yeah, don't talk on it until you've been through it. Yeah.
but I learned in my last relapse, and this was actually the relapse to when Christy talked about it or class reunion. But that May, I started. I had one friend who's taking me for kava, so dealing with kava. It was nice,
Hmm.
feel relaxed, and I was messing around with microdose mushrooms. You can get them
Hmm.
on Amazon. Amazon.
Yeah.
They were
Yeah.
delivering them to my house. So I'm eating the mushrooms. I'm feeling pretty darn good. It does relax me. I can't take too many. And I didn't want to get high, but I was taking these, and then I go to rehab, and then my past counselor says in a group, "Don't mess with kava. It tickles the same neurological pathway that
Right.
your addiction did," and that's exactly how I look at it right
Right.
now. I'm like,
Well,
"Man,
if you
can't
heard
do
that
this."
that phrasing, "can't jump fences," you can't jump fences, meaning like, so the high is to like get you to that state of like altered reality, or like, spirituality, or, just like I'm smoking weed just to get there, or I'm doing this to get
Yeah,
there. And that's
yeah,
just that, can't jump fences. And then when it's your thing that's tickled by that, and it's, not able to hold a job, can't drive legally, caught, in the next stages. So, I mean, that's just, I'm just so grateful you talked about it. I've over talked. I want Kristi to just touch in on all her points. I know, but with me, it was just, I'm so grateful. I really look forward to reading your book. Truly, I know it will help people understand that because you've shared, you don't leave anything out too much, it's not watered down, and it's not to, maybe not for the faint of heart. If they, it's, if you want to know the truth about what it looks like, and what you've been through, and you just have, again, just, it's, it's just beautiful to see recovery. And I can't go into the whys and what ifs, why, it's a bigger picture, and there's something that you were meant to do, and you've completed that with the book, and this is that. And healed relationships with your family. And, uh, I just am really glad that we could have this open conversation, and just real conversation.
no, thank
Well,
you
Christy,
for
one of
having me.
yeah.
I was just going to say one of the things that is not acknowledged enough, in my opinion, is when people find recovery, is how um, brave you are, how brave you
Mhm,
are.
mhm.
Because in the journey of writing your book, in the acknowledging it, and having people tell you that your book makes them uncomfortable, you're being authentic. And living authentically takes courage. And the things I've learned from those in recovery have have made me who I am today. And it goes back to learning how to be uncomfortable. And
Right.
I had always hoped that Devin would find that sobriety. I believe he could have found the sobriety, but the drugs in today's world is they're hard, and it's recover out loud or die. I mean,
Mm,
and
mm,
for anybody who doesn't understand how much courage an individual has to continue to seek sobriety, I
mm.
honor that.
Well, then I want to segue that into in the ninth step of AA is your amends. In the eighth step, you list everyone you harmed. In the ninth step, you're supposed to not ask for forgiveness, but to ask them how I can make it better. You acknowledge that you did something wrong and say, how can I make it better?
Yeah,
And
amends.
a lot of them you can't. They're either they passed away or they won't forgive you. They won't even meet with you. They won't accept you. They're gone. And the way they say you can address that is called living amends,
Yeah,
meaning you just do the right thing. You live. If they want to come back around, they'll come back around. But if you do the
that's
right
right.
thing, good things will happen. The living amends,
Right,
I think that's huge.
right.
So I can't
It
Writing
go
is
your
out here.
amends to
huge.
your, yeah, the
I
amends to
can't go out here.
yourself.
I can't
Mhm.
go out here and scold people. Say you did that wrong. You should. This is a big problem with AA. You shouldn't do this, or you have to do that.
Mm, mm.
I don't do that. I just want to live well. And like I said, I'm in a unique position where I'm actually living in recovery. So I'm not
Yeah,
recovered,
yeah,
talking down to people. I'm talking with them and saying, "Hey,
yeah.
I'm not months. I'm only 9 months, man. I'm a baby. I'm not even.
We're
I'm
we're
not
all
even.
just we're all walking each other home. This is not
I,
a anyone's got
I,
it figured out kind of story. This is
I've got
we
other
are,
addic-
yeah,
I've got other addictions. I quit tobacco in last fall, but now I have
yeah,
the nicotine patches. I drink way too
yeah,
much coffee, and I
yeah,
doom scroll. I mean, I still have things I want to work on, but first things
yeah.
first. The poisons. I'm gonna get rid of the poisons first.
Anyone does in their own recovery, that journey looks different for every single person, and getting to that place looks different for every single person.
But what I see is Keith is somebody who you haven't given up. You keep going. You keep going back. And to me, that is a resilience that up until Devin's last day, he taught me how not to quit. And
Yeah,
I see that in you. So I want to
I
acknowledge
get.
that.
Well, thank you. I have there's a phrase I keep using with my pastor because we work a lot together during the week, and he's like, "Yeah, thank you so much for doing this." And I go, "I didn't have to. I get to." That's why
Yeah.
I was. I'm like, I shouldn't be here. The book
Yeah.
explains that pretty carefully. I
I
really
know.
shouldn't be here. I'm on
I know
borrowed time.
that.
So I live in this like forever gratefulness thing, and even the people at church are like, "How do you smile while you're walking around, changing the toilet paper in the bathrooms and stuff?" I'm
Yeah.
like, I shouldn't be here. Come on,
Yeah.
I shouldn't.
Yeah.
Toilet paper is
I don't get.
important in life.
I just don't get as upset. Yeah, I still get agitated when I do school and political stuff because of my background, but I'm getting better, and that's it.
Yeah.
Progress, not perfection.
Yeah. I too
Um,
have just like that, I just shared like the things that made me angry at the time that things weren't being said. But does that doesn't serve you to stay in that space too. So there's like that. I'm just like I'm also learning like, we're sharing here about these issues, but like, yeah, if it's not going to serve me and I can feel it like heating me up, I'm just like, don't do that. Like that's the giving the gift to yourself to just like don't do that. It's the same thing as like putting, away something that's not gonna feed your soul. It's
mhm.
yeah, and so what do you like again? So you're a lot of service, and then in your your church, and then physical activity, and in terms of just like help, just to keep your mind
That was
going and
that was
writing.
the other
Yeah,
that that was the other thing that's changed this time. I wanted to touch upon is physical fitness. I don't
yeah,
think I've fought as well right now that I have in 20 maybe 30 years, and it's
yeah,
because I walk a lot. I do a little bit of resistance band training. I eat better. I quit sugar like 3 years ago as a game changer.
yeah.
I
Sugar's
just
poison. Mm-hmm.
all the clouds and bad thinking. I don't have that anymore. I just feel better.
Yeah,
Finally, I wish I would have done this 30 years ago, but the physical
yeah,
fitness thing I can't emphasize enough, man. If you want to get
yeah.
better, start walking. And also
Absolutely.
Thank you,
the big thing
Keith.
right now, by the way, is sunshine. The more I work on my
Yeah,
tan, the better I feel. And they say
You
yeah.
that
look
they
healthy.
believe
Chase the sun.
they
Yeah.
they believe vitamin D prevents the hantavirus. That's their studying. So
Oh, it prevent it
get
again.
outdoors, get outdoors.
Giving they were
Get
giving tickets
outdoors
to get
and move.
giving tickets in the lockdown for people walking on the beach.
We
What's
me and Karen are on the beach in early COVID. We're in Long Beach. It's a big long beach. We're, we're sitting there just having a picnic and yapping. And
Yep.
that's everyone within 50, 100 feet. The
Yeah.
lifeguard walked up, and
Yeah.
made us put masks on, and that moment I go, this is nuts because
Nuts.
I feel better. I'm telling you, if you get more sun every day, just get half an hour, just get outside and
Yeah.
breathe. You'll feel
Yep.
better. You will feel better.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank you so
aloha.
much. Aloha.
Thank
Thanks
you,
for so much for
Keith.
having me.
Of
Thank you
course.
for
And
coming
again,
on.
look. Tell people where they can find your book before I hang up.
Oh,
This is
right.
Keith's book.
Yes.
My book is available on well, you go to keithjajko.com. That's my website. It's on Amazon. If you just Google or use the search for Rehab All-Star, it will come up. It's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and Walmart. I bought them off Walmart, and all
Yeah.
three of those. And then my website has a link where you can buy directly from my distributor. Uh, that's where they are. And then also on Facebook, I have a Rehab All-Star book. It's called Rehab All-Star book.